And that is to ask yourself two questions. When you're looking at a measurement, you ask yourself, what does this tell me? So if I'm looking at sessions, what does that tell me? That tells me someone came and visited my site. Awesome. That is great. But the second question is, then what happened? And as you're walking through this and you're thinking through the different measurements for each stage, you just continually ask yourself, what does this tell me? And then what happened? Because I can say, I have sessions. They came and they visited my site. Then what happened? Well, they went and they viewed a product. That's great. What does that tell me? It tells me that they are interested in something that I have to offer. But what happened after that? They added it to their cart. We're getting even better now. So I have someone who's actively looking to make a purchase. They were interested, they're ready to go. It's great. Then they actually make the purchase. Fantastic. My site brought them in. They were able to find what they were looking for. They added it to their cart and then they checked out. So now I have this final piece of not just the number of sessions that I had on my site, but all the way through of these different metrics along the line that tell me how they interacted throughout that funnel.
And here we are back to that funnel, because we got to figure out what sales did wrong, because these are some pretty standard sales, KPIs. They're tracking pipeline growth. They're tracking average contract value, which is a pretty important standard piece to track, and attrition rates are important to track. But here, the issue was that the company strategically set a high revenue target. And you know what? Sales is smart. Sales says, wow, these service contracts are not as high ACV as the equipment sales contracts. So if we sell equipment and push equipment, we're going to hit that revenue target faster. And, unfortunately, they were not informed. Their compensation plan nor any of their KPIs were based on margin. They were based on top line revenue numbers, sales numbers. And it turns out that no one returns equipment the same year they bought it. So that was also a debunked KPI. The drop in attrition rate was 100% that no one returned the equipment within the window. And what finance really showed was that gross margin was down 18%. So that was the big killer, right? But it's not the only killer, because we talked before about how we look at business in this two parts: top of funnel, put it in; bottom of the funnel, make it happen, right? So this caused some downstream issues, with service revenue down 12 million. Payroll as a percent of net margin was up. So the managers of all of the departments after sales had no insights of what was coming. I mean, you're talking about, I forecasted revenue growth. We go over pipeline. The revenue growth is there. So I'm fulfilling my labor forecast and I'm hiring. And then I don't have any work. So now I'm over capacity. So now I'm firing, right? And so no one at the bottom half of the funnel was getting insight into what was actually being sold. They were at their leadership team meetings getting top line revenue numbers. We're hitting our revenue targets. The other issue was that when service contracts are not sold, there is a huge piece of this company's revenue that is expansion contracts that are sold by the service team. And when you don't sell services in, services can't find those opportunities. So we hit that sales number as well, which the sales team isn't really involved in that and isn't, aware or participating. So they weren't, even cognizant that that was going on. And again, a lot of the stuff that shows up in the finance reports and some of these reports is pretty far behind, just because, the clients take a long time to pay, especially on labor contracts. So here we really wanted to look at how much was spent in sales conversion. When you add labor and T&E, you are going to find that you are spending a lot more than you think you are. So many times our labor, and we're going to do this a lot later, right, Liz? We're going to talk about breaking apart that SG&A bucket and taking labor out and looking at labor and what areas of your business the labor should be attributed to. In this particular case, we want to look at marketing and say conversion rate by lead source. This is your accountability for marketing, right? Is what percent of the opportunities produced by marketing turn into deals or sourced by salespeople. Salespeople source the highest conversion rate opportunities. So we would have discovered that misfit with our high cost of lead generation going on in marketing, and cost of sales as a percent of ACV by type. So in this particular case, they had everything running through a single pipeline. So here's your tip to fix is if you have highly variable sales process or products and solutions that you're selling with vastly different values, you might consider putting them in different pipelines. In this particular case, the services manager needed a pipeline that was 100% service contracts coming. If they were being fed revenue for service contracts, they could have done their labor forecasting properly. The opposite is also true. Procurement, distribution, logistics, they need to know how much product you're selling, right? And how much product you need. That's a separate piece. That piece of information goes to a separate department manager. So it is important that you look at those things. And again, we've got data coming from multiple sources that has to be matched together, because otherwise your sales team has no idea what the margin rates are on anything and whether or not they're selling the right pieces. And you as a leadership team can help if you can see what's coming down the pipe. So Liz, I always get asked, what are the primary KPIs that we need to have or that everyone needs?
Yeah. So there are, what we have shown here are some of the most standard KPIs that are generally attributable to most companies. But when it comes down to it, there's no standard set of KPIs of you must use these, you must always track these, because your business is going to be different from another business. But these are some standards that we look at where we're looking at things like cost per lead in the dollars, the actual dollar cost by the lead source, contract value by type, cost of sales by type. And you're going to see in here when we list these out that we have these little modifiers in here by lead source, by type, by type. And that's so that we can get some of those further breakdowns in without totally blowing up everything and have some consistency throughout the measurement process. But these 8, I believe it is here that you're seeing, are pretty standard things that are actually bits of information that need to be known by multiple people throughout the organization and that impact the jobs of multiple people throughout the organization.
Yeah, this is data that changes behavior in the behavior in the direction that you want it to go. Without it, I'm flying blind. 90% of my decision is not using data. Right, so, right. A lot of people don't have any data, but what happens when you have too much?
Yeah, some people have a lot. We're going to kind of take a look at the other end of the spectrum here. And we're going to go from, we're measuring these couple things to we have over 400 KPIs. And boy, do we know lead gen is our problem. Out of those 400 KPIs, boom, that's it. That's the issue. So the big question here when you're getting into these programs is actually finding out if do your people understand your data? If you have all of this data, do the people within your company understand what it means? So if they understand that, then you can put processes in place to manage the process to collect it. They can improve or automate that process, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the conversation here, in order to get more measurable outcomes of all the different things that they're doing. But even more than that, you can select and implement all of those systems that are most necessary in order to make your business function as efficiently as it possibly can. And when your business functions efficiently and you're measuring the right things and you have all the data in place, you're able to better facilitate all those processes. You're able to better measure the KPIs, to better know exactly what's going on at any given time.
So really quick, before we dive deeper into what in the heck were they measuring, that's 401 KPIs, good grief. Gabrielle, have we had any questions come in that we should answer now before we dive into this bucket of worms?
No, I've been keeping an eye on chat. I think we are caught up. And just a reminder for everyone, feel free to drop those questions in chat, and we can address those during class. But we are caught up for now.
Awesome. I didn't want to have a big backlog, so we do want to answer them in a timely manner. And oh my goodness, Liz, what is this?
No. So this picture here, this is a representation of what kind of starts to happen a lot of times when you're starting to build a measurement program. Is that you start off, you've got this great building, you've got your 8 main KPIs, you're measuring things, but then maybe someone from marketing comes in and says, hey, we want to tack these on. These are things that are important to us. Sales comes in and they tack something else on. Finance comes and drops this thing over the top. And you just start sticking all these different pieces together with no necessary rhyme or reason to it. And then you end up with this measurement program that becomes burdensome and that isn't really connected. And it all just falls apart until you have this mess of 400 KPIs that you're measuring on a regular basis that can't possibly support any findings just because of the fact that you're measuring too much. We're here telling you to measure and how to measure and the things that you should measure, but there is such a thing as measuring way too many things that don't actually impact what you're able to do in the long run.
Yeah, and I would say I see this a lot too in like M&A or different types of companies that are launching new products, because each new product or service or solution kind of gets its own data structure. Each company that we acquire has its own data structure, and we end up with a pile of goo.
Right, especially when you're talking about something like M&A, you've got your existing structure of KPIs. Here are the things that we're measuring, but now we're bringing in this new node, this new company, and they already have their things that they measure. So we're just gonna like stick them together and hope for the best that it's going to work. And we don't need to integrate the measurement because everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So when you're blinded by bad KPIs, a lot of data, but no information. Of course, I love that phrase because I use it all the time. But right. What do you mean no information?
So going back to that original one, we said that this company was saying they have 401 KPIs. They know that lead generation is 100% for sure the problem. But when digging into the data and actually looking at what was really and truly there, they were missing the fact that 47% of their closed contracts never actually bought anything from them. So was lead generation actually the problem when no one was actually converting the sale after the fact? So this was where it was kind of time to dig in and start looking at these things and saying, okay, let's see if this is really the problem or where things are actually running into issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty big hole in your bucket to be looking to spend more money with more water flowing from the faucet. So we definitely wanted to shore that up. That was a nice 4-month argument. But at the end of the day, we all agreed it was there and we needed better measurement strategy.
Yeah, so the first thing that we looked at, because they're insistent of lead gen is the problem. We're like, okay, let's develop a measurement. Let's take a look at lead gen. Let's see what's going on here.